Hi, this is Sean Smith. Thank you for joining me on Flat Thumb, and this is my first video, and I would like to discuss the Hegelian Dialectic, Incrementalism, and the mark. I'd like to begin with the Hegelian Dialectic, which is thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. A thesis being a beginning proposition or the problem. Antithesis being a negation of that thesis or the argument against that thesis, and it's also known as reaction. And synthesis being the two conflicting ideas being reconciled to form a new proposition, also known as the solution. I'd like to start with synthesis, which is the goal. And actually the beginning or the foundation or root of why thesis, antithesis, and synthesis even exist in the first place. Why the method is used. There has to be a method to reach the goal. And so the thesis and the antithesis were created in order to produce the goal. Now, thesis being the method of creating an argument, thesis and antithesis working hand in hand to create an argument in order to reach the point where the goal can be achieved. The thesis can also be looked at as the straw man that is created to attack the ideals or individuals standing in the way of the goal. The antithesis is the argument against that straw man, which is designed to create friction, opposition, fear, hatred, and disgust against the straw man. Now, the straw man is whatever ideal, whatever individual that exists, which is preventing the goal from being accomplished. So, in order to attack something, the individual or the ideal, that is a hindrance to the synthesis or the goal or the solution. You have to vilify that ideal or that individual. That's what the straw man is. The straw man is designed to create an enemy that doesn't really exist. It is the attack of something that normally that is good in order to produce something that people would not normally agree with. So, say you want to, now I would like to approach this with the synthesis being the mark of the beast. And the tool for that, for reaching that goal, being the Hegelian dialectic in incrementalism. Incrementalism is the step-by-step changing of a society through ideals and laws. When you want to reach a goal, but you are far from that goal because the mindset and the laws of that nation are preventing that goal from being met. You have to find a way of breaking down those ideals that the people hold and the laws that are preventing that from being able to happen. The ultimate goal from being able to take place. That goal that I'd like to that I'd like to expound on would be the mark and how the Hegelian dialectic has been used. Now, the thing that has always stood in the way of the mark of the beast are a particular ideal coming from Scripture. And that would require several things. Not only would you have to attack Scripture by vilifying the translators of it, but you would also have to change the text itself. Now, the mark, we know from the original translation, says that the mark will be in the right hand or in the forehead. That it will be something that is used to buy and sell, and without it you will not be able to buy and sell anything. So in other words, if you do not take this mark, you do not accept it, you will starve. If your family doesn't take it, they will starve and die. The people that say no will be attacked verbally, physically. They will be put in prison, and their lives will be taken by law enforcement or by their government. How do you get people to accept an idea so radical, so against human nature, to want to be free, to make their own decisions? This is a mark that will be able to track you. It will have your history on it, all of your medical records, your financial records, everything. How do you get people to accept something like that? To actually physically, medically inserted a mark that will be permanent and that will track you for the rest of your life, and that will control you through your bank account. A mark that will end the existence of paper money. What does that mean? Think about it. What about Craigslist? How many of you use Craigslist? How many of you go to garage sales? How are you going to buy or sell outside of grocery stores? Do you think everyone's going to be able to get the technology that's required in order to sell from their home? Do you think everyone can afford that? Now we're told not to take the mark. God says that those who take the mark will go to hell. And there's a choice that's going to be made. It's going to have to be made. Either you take the mark, or you go hungry and you die, or you go to prison. How do you get people to accept something that horrible? And that's where I would like to bring in the idea of incrementalism. Step by step, a little bit at a time. And I've heard it compared to a frog that's put in cool water or cold water, and the heat is only turned up a little bit, just a tiny flame. And as the water heats up, the frog doesn't realize that it's heating up. It's getting used to the temperature. And it's been said that you can boil a frog without it realizing that it's being boiled. That's incrementalism. And we're the frogs. So, where do you begin? Who's the enemy of that goal, of the mark? Who stands in the way? What ideals? So you think about that. The ideals that are standing in the way. How about freedom? How about people that do believe God's word? How about people that believe that paper money in hand, which really is part of having freedom. It's in your hand, it's in your pocket, and it can be protected by you. A bank can't push a button and make it disappear. Right? Because it's in your hand. So paper money has to be made obsolete, be made to look like a risk. Just like we've seen American money changed over and over and over and over again over the last decade or so. How many new versions of the dollar, new printings of the dollar have we seen with all the new technology added? And every single new technology was supposed to solve the problem of, again, the problem or the thesis being people who are printing money falsely outside of the Federal Reserve. Oh no, we have a problem. There's too many people out there printing money falsely. So we have to change the dollar. This is becoming such a problem. We have to keep changing it. We're having to spend too much money on technology to keep the dollar from being printed falsely. And you have your antithesis, which is the argument, oh no, this is becoming a problem. We need a solution. And the incrementalism is the solution. Let's use credit. Credit is safer. But credit also takes away the cash out of your hand and puts it in a bank account that you don't control. So you use your card, and I can tell you from experience it's harder to be able to monitor your bank account when you and your spouse are using a card. There's no way to divide up the funding properly so that you both are able to have money on hand that you can spend within the framework of a budget. That's a problem. That's a real problem. That's a real problem that was created by the so-called solution. It's not going to be solved by going one step further. One step further being using your phone. It's the same concept. It's digits on a screen. You still can't divide it. And when somebody can steal your phone and use your phone to get into everything you have, all your information, that's a problem. When there was paperwork, nobody had access to your papers except the office that had them. And if someone broke into that office, they could be caught. Now, anyone can access your information remotely. Your phone can actually be mirrored by someone else remotely. So the phone becomes the new problem. What's the solution to this new thesis? And all the opposition that's going to be raised against it in the media. Well, you have to have something permanent then. Since the phone, using that instead of a credit card, we can see that happening now, where your phone can be used so all the opposition in the media that we know is going to have to come into play, what are they going to say? Well, it just opened up the door to all kinds of new quote-unquote problems. We have to solve those problems, but remember the goal has already been put in place. So what's the solution? A permanent mark. Well, you can have all your information on that right in your hand. How is anybody going to get a hold of that if it's right in your hand? Right? That'll solve everything. A permanent mark, so no one can touch your information, and your information goes with you wherever you are. Because, hey, you know, there are some people, they have diabetes, or they have seizures, or they have other health problems, and, you know, sometimes paramedics really need to know if you have an episode, what's wrong with you, right? Because there's no such thing as alert bracelets, right? Alert bracelets don't exist. That wouldn't be a solution to that problem, would it? And you know, anybody with a severe diabetic problem or a seizure problem, they can actually get that put on their ID. Or they can wear a bracelet. They're available. So the solution is already there. You don't need a mark for medical purposes. The money isn't the problem. We've found again and again that the people that are falsely printing money actually are involved with governments. They're mafia organizations which have government connections. Who's causing the problem then? If it's not you, it's not me, It's not an average person, but it's people working hand in hand with governments. So then who's causing the problem? And they're always, these same people working hand in hand are always ready with the synthesis or the solution. Now if we go back to the straw man, which is a way of attacking whatever stands in the way of the goal, which in this case would be the mark. There has always been a very strong aversion to, or opposition against, the mark, and people never really knew what it was. They guessed at it. They thought that they might know at different times of history. But now, in our time, we have technology that fits the definition of that better than at any other time of history. Especially being that it's a mark that it goes in your hand, and they're inserting it in the right hand. There's also one that has been developed that was discussed on TED Talks. That is a tattoo that can be tattooed into your forehead. And we've seen incremental promotion of tattooing in the media. And where have we seen it? On reality shows. How many reality shows are there about tattooing now? And it's been glorified, right? This catches the modern generation at the 20-somethings. Oh yeah, a tattoo would be really cool, especially if it had all your medical information and all of your banking information and your whole history on it. Wouldn't that be awesome? See, they've already been primed and taught that tattoos are amazing, right? But there was a time when tattoos belonged in only a certain genre or only a certain group of people. Christians, Bible believers did not get tattoos. But now you have public figures who claim to be Christians promoting it. This is a betrayal of all Christians who've known not to mark themselves. That even God himself said not to. And he tells us that in his word. Not to make piercings and not to mark yourself. But these Christians are standing up and saying it's okay. And they're doing it in the public. And there are young Christians or young churchgoers who watch these people. And they follow after what these people are doing. They emulate them. Well, that fits right in with a tattooable mark. So what do you have to do in order to get to that point? You break down the public image of what it is to be a Christian. You raise a straw man and you say a straw man or a Christian is a fanatic, a fundamental Bible-believing Christian, goes too far. They're terrorists, they're dangerous. You accuse them of all manner of ridiculousness. They're fools. They're the idiots that go around thumping Bibles and screaming in public. Because isn't that what we are shown on television shows and movies? Quote-unquote Bible believers that have been portrayed in movies as believing in UFOs and stupid things like alien abductions, wide-eyed. Look at Woody Harrelson and the parts that he has portrayed as quote-unquote a Bible believer in the characters that he's portrayed in movies. I can think of one in particular, and it was an apocalyptic movie that he played in. And his character was completely insane, and it was the only one that was a Bible-believing character. And the person that wrote that part intended to make Christians look insane. People watching that are affected by how that looks. And how can you change the mind of a person who already has their mind made up for them by the movies and the actors that they venerate or that they admire? They're going to go along with that way of thinking. They're going to look at that character and say, well, why would he play the part if it wasn't close to the truth at least, right? And even if they don't believe it's close to the truth, you can't help but have your view affected. When you see it over and over and over again, and Christians are made to look like monsters, like raving lunatics, they're the ones that are telling you don't take the mark. And they're doing it, or they're telling you, actual Christians, not the ones portrayed in movies, but actual Christians. They're the ones telling you for the good of your own soul, because they know the warning that is given. Don't take the mark. And if you keep listening to the media, movies, television shows, and you believe the image that's portrayed, you are falling into the dialectic that is being created and the incrementalism that's being employed in order to corral you into taking the mark. The Bible has been attacked. You wouldn't believe the things that I've seen people say, or that I've heard people say. And by seen, I mean on discussion boards, on electronic media. They're accusing God, the God of the Bible, of all kinds of murderous and evil intent without even understanding what they're talking about. And it's just, none of it is true. And if you read it for yourself and you do the research, look up the meaning of the words. Look up the meanings of the names of the tribes that God had destroyed. See what those names mean, and you'll understand what was going on. You cannot stand by, fail to do the research for yourself, believe the Hegelian Dialectic conversation we're seeing in the media. And then say that you know something or that you understand, especially if the conversation or the dialogue that's being created is contrived for the purpose of reaching a goal, and a goal that has never been for our benefit. You have to do the research and look into it for yourself. Read the Bible and find out for yourself. Why are people so against the mark? Look it up. Why is the government attacking Christians? Why, even in churches, is the Bible being attacked? Textual criticism is another step in the process. Attack the source of the Bible. Attack the person who first wanted that translation to be produced, which is King James. He produced a Protestant Bible through translators. He had translators gathered together in order to produce a translation. The King James Bible is the most attacked and most hated Bible in history. Why? It's a Protestant Bible. Think about it. What were Protestants protesting against? So then who's leading the attack? Do your research. Because it's playing into the end times. And the end times are approaching. You want to really know? Do your own research. Pick up a Bible and read it. Get a hold of a copy of Translators Revived. And I believe the author is Jerome Zanchius. I could be wrong, and if I am, I'll put the name of the book and the author in the description of this video. But the title is Translators Revived. And it will tell you exactly who the translators actually were for the King James. I am not any part of any group. And I am not sponsored by anyone. I'm just an individual that wanted to share some of my thoughts. It may not have come out in the way that I had wished that I could explain it and how I see it or how I feel it in myself. But I hope to encourage anyone who has gotten this far in the video to please do your research, because we have been incrementally brought to this point where you will look at me for even saying the things that I've said and call me a radical, or you will call me a kook. You will think I am dangerous, that I promote violence. And what I am promoting is for you to think independently with your own mind, find out the answers for yourself and stop following the incremental pattern toward your own and my own destruction. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to comment or to click on subscribe.